Australia's first national climate risk assessment is warning 1.5 million Australians are at risk from sea level rises by 2050 unless climate change can be limited. The assessment also warns climate-related hazards will increase, heat-related deaths will soar, and the cost of disaster recovery will jump to more than $40 billion a year. Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen says it's an honest warning of the cost of failing to act.
Cascading, compounding, concurrent. That's how the Australian Climate Service describes the impact of climate change on every community in our country. Cascading, it will get worse over time. Compounding, each impact of climate change will make another impact worse. And concurrent, communities will suffer the impacts of climate change in different ways at the same time and will have a lot to manage.
The grim document has been released days ahead of the federal government committing to its emissions target for 2035 and a meeting at the United Nations where countries will update their commitments. Political reporter Jake Evans is in Parliament House with all the details. Hi there, Jake. Can you take us through some of the key findings?
G'day, Kath. Yes, as you mentioned up the top there, this is one of the single most comprehensive assessments of the climate change risk to Australia released by the federal government, and it runs into the hundreds of pages, and as a matter of fact the technical information that underpins it runs into the thousands of pages, so a lot to digest, but the overall picture for Australia is pretty grim. So the National Climate Risk Assessment laid out three potential scenarios: a 1.5 degrees Celsius warming scenario, a 2 degree scenario and a 3 degree scenario. Now the Climate Change Authority says based on current global commitments the world is on track to see 2.9 degrees Celsius of warming, and under that scenario about 1.5 million Australians would be exposed to rising sea levels by 2050. The report modelling about a half a metre rise by that time, and potentially higher, although it has a lower confidence of how high it could potentially go. It also spells out that by 2030, under that scenario, more than 500,000 Australians would be exposed to flooding and other risks related to sea level rise. So in a nearer time frame, already beginning to see the impacts of climate change, and that was one of the things Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen was keen to spell out. These things are already happening. Australia already is seeing a 1.2 degree warming scenario, and so he knows that this is a document that would be confronting for people to read, but the picture that he has been trying to spell out is that this is also a document that gives a picture of how government should respond, how people should act to mitigate the worst harms of this. I'll list a few others for you because there was an awful lot, but a few of the other major noteworthy things that we've seen in this report are a $600 billion hit to property values, a $40 billion annual disaster bill by 2050, about half of plant life in habitats changing under that 3 degree scenario, looking different to how they did in 1990, and a similar number of species either having to relocate, adapt or die out under that scenario. Really grim warnings for coral bleaching. The word that they used was catastrophic consequences would be likely under a 3 degree scenario. And as we know, there's a major algal bloom in South Australia already killing wildlife in the thousands there. The warning for the Southern Ocean was that there's nowhere to go for marine life down there, and again a really grim picture under that 3 degree scenario.
And Jake, we know that this report has been released ahead of the government announcing its climate targets. What has Chris Bowen said about that, those 2035 climate targets?
Yeah, Kath, this is a major document. It's also a political document laying the groundwork for that commitment that will be made this week that will set the course for Australia's climate action for the next decade and onwards. The Minister acknowledged that there's a lot of pressure from both sides over where that target will be. We know that the Climate Change Authority was previously considering something within the window of 65 to 75%. Now, its advice has been handed to Minister Bowen, and What it looks like, we don't yet know. It's possible that it came in under because the world has changed since that work began. The US President Donald Trump has been elected, and we know the US has retreated from climate action. Chris Bowen and the government writ large, Prime Minister, will make that announcement later this week. Business will be hoping for something towards the lower end, while climate groups are asking for something that is at least in the 70s. Mr. Bowen saying this morning that he knows whatever that figure will be, it will be controversial.
The target will be controversial by definition. There'll be plenty of Australians who say it's too low and plenty of Australians who say it's too high. It will be a target I'm very confident that we can look at with confidence, that it can be achieved, and with pride in its level of ambition.
The Prime Minister flies to New York at the end of this week for the United Nations General Assembly, and he will announce our 2035 target before he flies.